everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at a topic that a lot of you have been asking about, Christian dating.
It's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, we got a ton of requests to deep dive into this, and we've got some really interesting sources lined up. We have this article here. It's called "Why is Dating Harder for Single Christians?"
Oh, yeah, I read that one. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And then we also have an episode of a podcast on the same topic, so we'll be looking at both of those today. We're going to try and figure out what makes dating so tricky for Christian singles.
Yeah. What are those unique challenges they face?
Exactly. And are there any advantages or, special opportunities that come with dating as a Christian?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. One of the first things that really stood out to me from that article was the statistic. It said that the vast majority of single Christians they surveyed hadn't been on a date in the past 6 months.
Wow.
I know. And get this. It said that non-Christian singles go on an average of like 1 or 2 dates a month.
That's a pretty big difference.
Huge. Right. So that really got me thinking, why is that?
Uh-huh.
Is it because, I don't know, maybe the whole waiting for God's timing thing? Maybe that makes people kind of, I don't know, maybe a little too passive about dating.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, obviously trusting in God's plan is super important.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Does that mean we should just sit around and wait for things to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe there needs to be like a balance.
Yeah. Right. Like a balance between faith and action.
Yeah, exactly.
And both the article and that podcast episode we have, they both talk about this idea of unrealistic expectations. Like that can really mess things up when you're dating, especially as a Christian.
Yeah, I think everyone's guilty of that sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like having this giant checklist of everything you want in a partner.
It's like you're trying to order them from a catalog or something.
It's like the perfect Christian partner catalog.
Exactly. And if they don't check every single box, but well, it's good to have standards and know what you're looking for.
Sure.
Getting too hung up on superficial stuff or expecting someone to be absolutely perfect, I think that can actually make you miss out on some great people.
It's like you said, nobody's perfect.
Right. And there's that verse in Romans 3.23.
Oh, yeah.
For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're saying is don't get too caught up in finding someone who looks perfect on paper.
Right. Focus on the things that really matter.
So what are those things?
I think the sources said shared faith is a big one. Character. A genuine commitment to God.
Okay. Yeah, those definitely seem way more important than I don't know, what their favorite hobby is or something.
Exactly.
So, listener, I want to ask you, what are some of the things on your list? I mean, the things you're looking for in a partner. Do any of those things? I don't know. Maybe unintentionally limit your options.
It's a good question to think about.
It is. And another thing that both those sources talked about was this idea of taking dating way too seriously.
Oh, yeah. Like it's some kind of life or death situation.
Right. Like every date is a potential marriage proposal. I mean, that's got to be a lot of pressure, right?
For sure. And I bet it makes it hard to just relax and get to know someone.
It's like you're going on a first date with a marriage contract already filled out.
Uh-huh.
But seriously, it's like people forget that dating is supposed to be fun too, like a chance to connect with another person.
Mm-hmm. See if there's any chemistry.
Yeah. Figure out if you're compatible.
And I think the podcast made a really good point about this. All that pressure, it can actually prevent you from forming real connections.
Interesting.
It's like you're so focused on the end goal of marriage that you forget to enjoy the journey.
That makes sense. And the sources brought up this verse from Proverbs 16.9.
Oh, yeah. What's that one say?
It says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." So basically, we can make all the plans we want, but ultimately, God is the one in control.
That's reassuring.
Right. So I think if we really trust in God's plan, a lot of that pressure just kind of melts away.
Yeah, you can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And just enjoy the process.
Exactly. So instead of seeing dating as this high-stakes pass or fail situation, maybe it's more about taking a deep breath and just enjoying the ride.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about expectations.
Right.
And taking the pressure off. But there's another thing that the sources brought up.
Okay, what's that?
And this one's kind of interesting. It's the fear of making the first move.
Oh, that is a big one.
And it seems like it's especially common among Christians.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe it's because there's this idea in Christian culture that you should wait for a sign from God.
Or wait for the other person to make the first move.
Right. But honestly, sometimes it feels like you're waiting for a meteor to strike.
Haha. Yeah, sometimes it does. But the podcast we have, they had this really cool counterpoint to that.
Oh, really? What was it?
They brought up the story of Ruth and Boaz.
Oh,
And they pointed out that Ruth didn't just sit around waiting for Boaz to notice her. You know, she actually took the initiative.
wow. Bold move.
Right. And it totally paid off. So I guess the point is, it's okay to make the first move.
Whether you're a man or a woman.
Yeah, exactly. You know, take a chance. But obviously, do it respectfully.
Yeah.
You know, and with wisdom.
You can find that story in Ruth chapter 3, verse 9, by the way.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, check that out, listener. Okay, but what about all the people who say, there's just no one to date at my church. Everyone's already married.
Yeah, that's a common one.
It is. And the sources kind of acknowledge that. Like, meeting someone at church can be tough.
For sure. And get this, the podcast actually shared this statistic that really surprised me. Only about 10% of married couples actually met at church.
Whoa.
Right.
That low.
I know. I was surprised too. But I guess it just goes to show that maybe we need to be open to meeting people in other places too.
So, like, not just relying on church.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So what else is out there? I mean, if not church.
Well, the article mentions some things,
Yeah.
like going to Christian conferences or retreats,
Oh, yeah, good idea.
or even just being more intentional about interacting with other Christians in everyday life.
Right, like at the grocery store, the gym, or wherever.
Exactly. You never know where you might meet someone.
It's all about being open to God's leading.
Yeah, and trusting that he can work in all kinds of situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like we've touched on a lot of different aspects of Christian dating already.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about those unrealistic expectations
Mm-hmm.
and the pressure to find the one,
Right.
and how important it is to take initiative and not be afraid to make the first move,
Mm-hmm.
and how we might need to look beyond just our church to meet people. But there's one more thing that I think really ties all of this together, and it's something that both sources emphasized, and that's the importance of creating opportunities.
Yeah, creating opportunities for connection.
So it's not just about, you know, waiting around for the right person to magically appear.
Exactly. It's about being proactive.
Interesting.
You know, the article actually talked about online dating.
Oh, yeah, like those Christian dating apps and websites.
Yeah. And it makes sense, right? I mean, there's a way to connect with other Christians.
Yeah, who are also looking for a relationship.
Exactly.
So it kind of narrows down the field a little bit.
Right. And you already know you have at least that one important thing in common.
Shared faith.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be all about online dating, does it?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, the podcast we listened to, they actually talked about this idea of showing your colors.
Oh, what does that mean?
Basically, it means being open about your faith in your everyday life.
So, like, don't hide it.
Yeah. You know, let people see that you're a Christian.
So, like, in conversations or the activities you do.
Exactly. Even just in the way you carry yourself.
So basically, don't be afraid to let your faith shine through.
Right. You never know who might be watching.
Or who might be looking for the same things you are.
And you know what? That chance encounter at the coffee shop or the bookstore,
Yeah,
that could lead to something amazing.
I like that. You know what I'm really appreciating about all this is that it's all about balance. Like, yeah, we need to be rooted in our faith,
Yeah.
but we also need to be open to new experiences, you know?
Right. Like stepping outside of our comfort zones a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And trusting that God is working in our lives, even when things feel messy.
And dating can definitely be messy.
Oh, for sure. But it's also important to remember that our worth doesn't come from our relationship status.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
But whether you're single or married, your value comes from God.
Period.
Exactly. So, yeah, embrace your singleness. You know, use this time to grow and learn about yourself.
And trust that God has a plan for you.
And his timing is always perfect.
Always. So let's do a quick recap for our listener, just to make sure we're all on the same page here.
Sounds good.
So we started by talking about those unrealistic expectations.
Right. And how we should really focus on things like shared faith and character.
Yep. Then we talked about taking the pressure off dating.
Like not seeing every first date as a potential marriage proposal.
Right. We need to remember that dating should be fun, too.
Yeah. It's about getting to know someone.
Exactly. And then we talked about the importance of taking initiative.
Yeah, like Ruth did with Boaz.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to make the first move.
And then we talked about how it's okay to look beyond just church to meet people.
Right. We got to expand our horizons.
Be open to new possibilities,
And finally, we talked about the importance of creating opportunities for connection,
both online and offline.
but always staying true to our faith.
Absolutely. So it sounds like action is really important here.
It does. Like, we can't just sit around and wait for things to happen. We have to actually do something.
But at the same time, we need to trust in God's plan.
Right. It's that balance again.
Yeah. It's amazing how it all comes back to that.
So, what does all this mean for our listener as they try to navigate the world of Christian dating?
What final thought would you leave them with?
It really does come down to trusting God and having faith that He's got this.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the hardest part.
Oh, for sure. But I think that's what makes the journey so rewarding, too, you know?
I think so, too. It's all part of the adventure.
Okay, so to wrap things up, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We have all the ups and downs of Christian dating.
We talked about those tricky expectations and how sometimes we might be setting the bar a little too high.
Yeah. Aiming for perfection when nobody's perfect.
Right. And we talked about how much pressure people put on themselves to find the one.
Like every date has to lead to marriage.
And how that can really suck the fun out of dating.
Yeah. Dating should be enjoyable, too.
Exactly. We also explored the whole idea of taking initiative. Like, sometimes you gotta be brave and make the first move.
Just like Ruth did in the Bible.
Yep. And we even challenged the idea that you can only meet someone at church.
Right. There's a whole world out there.
Full of possibilities.
Yeah.
And through it all, I think the biggest takeaway is this.
What's that?
Your relationship with God is the most important one you'll ever have.
Absolutely. And it's the foundation for every other relationship in your life.
So nurturing that connection with God and seeking His guidance, that's key.
It is. And it's also about remembering that your worth doesn't come from whether you're single or married.
Mm-hmm.
You are loved and valued by God no matter what.
So embrace this season of singleness. Use it to learn and grow, and trust that God's timing is always perfect.
Who knows? Your love story might be just around the corner.
Until next time, everyone keep diving deep and keep the faith.